Welcome to Experiencing Consciousness. My name is Jan Liva.
And I'm Dr. Catherine Rossi. We're happy you're here.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of our podcast. Today we are here with Dr. Catherine Rossi and
Hi.
Dr. Laurence Sugarman. And together we're going to be talking about a variety of topics. Let me introduce first Dr. Sugarman to all of you. So, Dr.
And you're going to love him.
Sorry?
You're going to love Laurence.
Of course, of course.
I do.
Dr. Sugarman, you are so many people in one person that I prepared myself a bit. So, Dr. Laurence Sugarman began his professional career as a primary care pediatrician in a city of Rochester, New York. In his practice, he sought to innovate primary mental health care for children by teaching them to focus and imagine creatively during physical examinations, scary procedures, and to endure illness. He was drawn to teaching self-hypnosis as a channel for developing well-being in healthcare encounters. Then, leaving primary care, he focused on self-regulation for young people with developmental differences and chronic illnesses. And then focus led him to scholarship, research, and professional education in clinical applications of mind-body health. Over his 40-year career, he has authored and co-authored many books, chapters, papers, has taught at collegiate and professional levels, has served on editorial boards, played leadership roles in professional organizations, and received many awards. Dr. Sugarman is research professor emeritus in a College of Health Sciences and Technology at Rochester Institute of Technology, maintains a therapy practice at Rochester's renowned Golisano's Autism Center, and pursues educational scholarship and research collaborations with various institutions worldwide. Whoa, that's a lot.
Yeah, but you left something important out.
Wait. I just want wait before that. You just ran the gauntlet of all those words beautifully. Yes, and this is as much about process and what we are doing in this moment as it is about anything else. So I want to celebrate that moment.
Absolutely, but also you're a musician.
Yeah.
And that has been something that has guided so much of the joy in your life.
I like how you said that. I've finally reached a point where I'm recognizing that it's not also a musician, but has always been and fundamentally is. And that's what's also guided so much suffering as much as joy. And let's make it more positive, struggle and grappling and growing and reaching. So we'll talk about that. I think maybe the theme that's emerging in my mind for this conversation is human development and creativity, and how important they are, and how I would argue in the evolution of our species, how creativity is a more recent innovation, something that's really only started being expressed in the last 10,000 years or so, in meaningful ways, and drives our evolution. So yeah. Saturday mornings in the kitchen at the table doing homework while mom cooked for my 4 older siblings and my father for the week, listening to the Metropolitan Opera. And the joke was, were the tears onions or Wagner? And the answer is both, right? So just the power of music to drive emotion, to label emotion, to shift us. And then I had those older siblings were all able to select instruments and then would be given lessons, which mostly occurred in our home. And there was a lot of rancor. There was, do you know how much we paid for that instrument? Why aren't you practicing? Your teacher's going to be mad at you. And the teachers were very firm. There was, it wasn't, how are you doing? It was, let's get started. And I feared that I don't want to use the word attraction, my thrall in music, right? Was like, that was the cost. If you want to do that, you have to subject yourself to denigration. And then in the late 50s, early 60s, I heard Pete Seeger play the banjo. And I kind of knew, I don't know how a 6, 7-year-old knows that, but knew that, well, that's not an orchestra instrument. They can't make me do that. I don't think I had a sense of revolution, but I certainly had there was this authenticity of folk music, of free expression. And I badgered my mother and my brother, and because he could drive, he was 10 years older than me. And we went to Jack Epstein's Music Supply at 6th and Prospect in Cleveland, Ohio, and bought me a banjo for $35, which still exists, by the way, and sounds pretty good. And all these years later, I'm the only kid still making music. My sister, one of my sisters has gone back to practicing the piano and spending time with Bach and Mozart and Chopin to kind of for therapy. But yeah.
It's really something, isn't it, when you think about the creativity of a child and what stands in the way of that. And
Right.
in those years, because I remember being young and having music lessons, and it was generally a 30-minute lesson, and you had to get right to it. And it's like the first part of it was like the exam. Did you learn anything last week? You know, that the determination, have you been practicing? Are you advancing? Are you serious about this? And there wasn't any notion of creativity. But then the 60s did roll around with Pete
Yes.
Seeger, and then you would hear people that they were singing just to sing. They were playing just to accompany their singing. And then the playing got better and better and better as the 60s wore on and the 70s wore on. And but there was this freedom from the past and the expectations, and you played music because you just loved how it felt.
Yes, and Woody Guthrie's famous quote, it's not whether the song is good, it's what it's good for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? How now, feeling good, lifting a mood, knowing somebody shares your misery, that's blues. Realizing we're all in this together, having a lovely dissociative experience. All of those are good. Those are things that are good for music. Music's good for. But I loved this emphasis is this music is not to make you an obedient child who knows the repertoire. This music is to open your heart and and get you vulnerable,
Mhm.
you know, taking risks. Um, uh, I once I can't remember who this guy was, but traveling through St. Louis when I lived there and was part of the folk music scene, I said, so there's some people who are coming who to the show tonight that, um, who may not like your kind of music. And he said, I ain't scared of nothing. I'm a folk singer. I just like it didn't make sense at the time, but it's been in my mind forever. Right. Right. I'm not this is it's the truth to power thing. Uh so that's what it's always meant to me. And then my parents were both writers within their profession, my professional stuff, but they were both writers. They both authored books. And I had an early, they're on my desk to show you my bravery. These are on my desk. I have had an early fear of red pencils.
Oh,
Yeah. I
that is
write
really
something
brave.
and I give it to my mom, and she would go to her desk and get a red pencil and, oh no. Right. I think most people still have a anticipatory anxiety in the face of editing. That's my body you're scratching on there. but but I started loving what writing did, so I became a writer of songs, poetry. It's poetry. Poetry has a meter, it has a rhythm, it has a flow to it. But the difference between song lyrics and written poetry or even spoken poetry is uh, there are words that just aren't good for singing. you poet songwriting is means well, I have a colleague who wrote this. God is in the vowels. You want those words, right? These words that carry breath. So
It's
uh,
so true. And what I know about your music, Laurence, is it takes you someplace. And a lot of times it's hypnotic. And I've never been to one conference that you've spoken at that you didn't play the banjo.
yeah, yeah.
And so it's really something. And I don't know, maybe there's like a little song that you could play now and help everybody to understand that this
Well,
is not just an intellectual thing.
let me transition. Let me add a transition to that uh, of something that happened recently in the last 6 months. A colleague of mine who's a wonderful mental health professional who I've known for a long, long time used to share space in my office with me. Uh, and our area of interaction, besides the people we knew and the friends and the family news and stuff, was what's happening in healthcare and stuff. And I finally dawned on me that I sent him. It took courage for me to do this over there. Shared with him a bunch of files of songs I'd written because I trusted him. He's safe, and he knows the value of emotional expression and attachment. Oh, he's also a really good, I think, a pretty good writer. And so I thought, I want to see what his edits would be. And I told him that. And the message back was very short. It was, I wouldn't touch this material. It's sacred. How did you write these things while maintaining your clinical and academic and scholarship, this efficient career? Nobody ever said that. I read that email and I paused. I feel it right now. And I burst into tears.
Mm-hmm.
It was as I didn't feel it coming. Like that non-conscious muse in left field that comes up with a haymaker or an uppercut. Just and it was and of course, and I feel like I learned this whole thing from Ernie. Of course, it was a question. It was an interrogative. It was an implicit processing heuristic. How did I do that? For me, hypnosis is about evoking therapeutic hypnosis, not getting you to buy something or undue influence. Therapeutic hypnosis is a methodology, a study of methods in which human beings take advantage of the fact that we all influence each other, that the self is a modern evolutionary concept. It's new. We made it up. And how do we do that tenderly and kindly? And so for me, all of the science, the empiricism, this rigor is such a valuable way to get at the truth, but it's always reduction. No, even when we're looking at systems, it's still reductionistic. We still put up boundaries, and the creativity of music, which is older than talking. We sang before we spoke. All animals sing in some form. We sing before, and singing and our music drives the evolution is of an evolutionary force. And so I think of that as that, of course, if music is effective, it's hypnotic because it should allow you to change. And hypnosis is a methodology and how we influence people to be able to change. Therapeutically is towards well-being, generously, kindly. So I'm not going to do a song. I happen to have a banjo here. You won't. I have to move way back if anybody's going to see it. But it is a beautiful instrument. Look at that.
Stunning.
Oh,
yeah. And the Doug Unger who did this just got carried away. I mean, why do you need an inlay on the back of the peg head? I mean, why? And then there's all this beautiful stuff. But I would have gotten this banjo if I couldn't see, because it sounds really pretty, even especially when it's in tune. So oh yes, let's move that one. Just no words.
Absolutely.
It can be 60 years of playing this instrument to be able to play slowly. Yeah.
Enjoying every sound.
Yes. And let the sound take as long as it needs, even if it means now you are behind the beat. You'll catch up. You know, those are days are go like that, right? I'm a little ahead of the beat now, I'm behind the beat now, I'm ahead of the beat. And we breathe that way. And so if we are using rhythm and intervals, I mean, what happens when a song or a sentence or a question starts with this? If that's not a question, that chord is a question. And not only that, it doesn't answer yet. Right? So I imagine that music uh, driving a person to change in some way. But in the same way we use hypnosis reflectively, responsively, non-directively, we're trusting that that other person is going to use that creative provocation.
I agree. And there's something, an interest of mine, even long before I met Ernie, was how could you do a psychotherapy without words or with as few words as possible? This was my question.
Sure.
And I find with hearing you play this particular tune that almost you were inventing it as you were playing it. And so, with the improvisation that then speaks to me about the freedom of improvising inside of my own mind, inside of my own body, inside of the different consciousnesses that that are operating. How about you, Jan?
Well, I've got many reflections, I would say. So, first of all, when you said when you were doing those chords and telling that they are questions and then that there's the answer somewhere in for in the process, uh, it reminded me of my own guitar lessons to be exact, where professional guitar lessons where I was taught music theory and everything else. And there was a part of this whole journey that took years to master the instrument properly, where my guitar teacher was telling me the same thing, that music is a dialogue and it's in between question and answer, and that certain parts of music are questions and then you provide an answer to it
Yes.
somewhere along the line. So, doing that, you kind of launched within me some of my own inner search, so to speak, and so my own associations came out to play. And when you were playing, a lot of, I closed my eyes because I started uh, the sound. I never actually saw anyone playing banjo live. And
Yeah.
since we are through the internet, I would say that even now I never seen anyone playing banjo live. I would have to be at your place to see it, like the whole thing. But the sound of banjo kind of in my mind is associated with some of the cartoons I was watching when I was young, with there was one about Wally Gator, and he was living on swamps, and he had some kind of cabin there, and he was sitting there on the porch and playing banjo, and those sounds, the sound of the instrument itself, kind of reminded me of a childhood. You know, so many different things, but. I had one thing that came to me particularly, you know, because when you said that music is important and so on, and many shades of importance of music came to my mind. I met people who told me that music played a lot of different roles in their lives. For example, there was one of my relatives told me once that she affiliates different periods in her life with different styles of music or different songs, or different singers. And so in her mind, some of her memories have musical theme. And then I met some people who told me that some lyrics or some music actually helped them in life, or saved their lives, you know. In my own
Yes.
life, when I was when I was going through a difficult period when I was young, very young, like, like, say 12 or something, and I was thinking, and there were some difficult parts of my life over there then, that were way over my age, and so on. And the thing that helped me out was Ozzy Osbourne, and it was because because of his songs, but also I knew his history. So I was like thinking to myself, if he were able to make it, then there are no boundaries. Sky has no limits,
Yes.
or
Yes.
something.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so my question is, since from what I understand, music was a part of your life on its on the entire, through the entire life, you had some parts of it with you. Um, why is it important to you? And that's one thing. And I would like to associate that question with creativity also, Is it that actually music and creativity in more general terms helped you through your life in some particular ways, or maybe in your work to be more creative? Or, these are questions I have. I know I throw a lot of them, but
Yeah, but no, let me play with it and interrupt me. But I want to think I want to start by uh, I want to start by responding that why I did not make music my career the way I uh, uh, made an income, my professional identity. Believe me, there were parts of I had when I was in college, I had my doctorate thesis in ethnomusicology figured out. I knew what it would have been. And I have had dreams of loss at not choosing that career. But I was subject to the influences of my family and my culture. And, you need to, that's I didn't see a way, understand a way, conceptualize music as an important uh, responsible occupation for a young man coming up, and I should pursue. And my father was an attorney, so that I wasn't going to do. And uh, I'd always liked science. I loved inquiry, and I had a lab in the basement, and so it was medical school. Choose medical school. Go to medical school. You will be successful. You have to get a terminal degree and establish yourself. And behind all of that was this creative impulse, and like playing late at night, someplace where nobody could hear me, like like an addiction, like and there was shame associated with it. Uh, uh, and and then a song would come out, and the first song I wrote, I didn't share with anybody for 5 years because I thought maybe they'll think less of me as a physician or a professional or smart or something. That was what's inculcated in me. And and it was my progressive development and relationships and my wonderful wife and my kids and people who I met who were musicians and people who valued music and people who encouraged me said, yeah, but what's this thing? And then that email from a few months ago that gobsmacked me and brought tears was, wait, this is a really important force. Art is an important force for making the only reason I do my art, which is writing and music, is to help make an emotional, personal sense of the world.
It's true. Ernie valued art, beauty, and truth. That
Yes.
when he distilled it to what was the most important things to him, it was art, beauty, and truth.
That's so it's kind of a handle on daily life. And then and as soon as I started opening that up, I started really writing more songs in the last 20 years and accelerating. I've written more songs in the last 6 months than I wrote in the previous 10 years, etc. So as soon as you start opening it up, somebody says something, and so I have a really great dentist. She's wonderful, and she loves jazz. She always has jazz on in the office, but she'll hum along with it. She's got a nice voice, and she could do stand-up comedy. And she has this favorite hygienist. So every other visit, you get the dentist, and she just has this great patter. And so she's humming, then she does this conversational patter, and every once in a while she says, "So, Laurence, I want you to notice this about your teeth or something." And so, and she doesn't know how good she is at educating people on the fly. But she and her hygienist were having this conversation about people who say, "Yeah, I know I did that, but that's not me," right? That's not who I am, right? And and that stayed in my head as the second line of the second verse of a song. It was the seed of the song came from, I got to use that word in a song. I got to use that line in a song. And it just turned into this whole thing because I'm open to it. And it makes all sorts, I used that line to make a whole lot of sense out of something that was going on in my life. And one of the important things as a writer, I think in general, but in songs especially, is you have to have the humility to say, well, I'm not that special. If this is affecting me in my life, this will speak to everybody else. Mm-hmm. I had a friend who was a psychologist. That was one of her great lines. She said, when she wanted to tell somebody that what they were going through is not that uncommon and it's okay. When she wanted to normalize things, she'd say, you're very special, but you're not that special. I love that line.
What a sense of
Yanks on the relationship. That's a great hypnotic line. Anyway, so creativity is how we have a sense of ownership and expression of how we make sense of the world.
And how we create our consciousness.
Well, how we invent it. And this happens to be in the same key. It still sounds sharp. Yes. Now, I don't think you need to see the banjo. You can hear it. I could say, of course, musicians tend to talk too much about their songs. And you should never say this is what this song is about, because that's stupid. Anyway, but we have a collage in the front hall with calligraphy, and there's feathers and lines and pen and color. It's beautiful. And it says, "Leap," she said, "and grow your wings on the way down." And it's, my wife bought it when I started my first academic position. I left primary care practice, and suddenly I'm a college professor and in primary care practice. And that first day I said, "Okay, here I go. I have no idea what I'm doing." and it, woke up next morning with storms clouding my head, facing the day, gauging the dread, how many sleepless nights in this bed. And you said something, and the darkness cleared. Dawn broke shining, that bluebird appeared. Ain't it great not to know all the ways things can go? Leap, she said, and grow wings on the way down. Your wings on the way down. Now, this next verse, second line. I'm standing over there. Oh, she's standing over there, being just like who she is. All authentical and beautiful, like it's nobody's business that she's not on the list. I could buy her a drink, say I flew in from the coast. Instead, I amble over and I propose a toast. Ain't it great not to know all the ways things can go? Leap, she said, and grow wings on the way down. Your wings on the way down. Oh, it's terrifying to stare down a blank page, so stark and empty, just dares me to engage. I got nothing for this line, with such courage and commitment, just to do my worst. So I pick up my pen and I scrawl this verse. Ain't it great not to know all the ways things can go? Leap, she said, and grow wings on the way down. Your wings on the way down. Now, please don't misconstruvulate all this. I'm not confusing ignorance with bliss. When the choice is fear or joy, I know I prefer whatever is foreseeable is never what occurred. know the day will come when it's time to end this race. And I'll teeter on the edge of endless time and space, maybe meet God face to face. But first I must let go of your hand. And I don't know where I'm gonna land. I'll say, here I go. And what's the plan? Ain't it great not to know all the ways things can go? Leap, she said, and grow wings on the way down. Your wings on the way down. So
wow, that was fabulous.
that's about it, right? That's it.
It is, but
The
the
joy,
way,
the joy of not knowing.
but and you know, there's the common saying, take a leap of faith,
Yes.
but take a leap and then you get the wings on the way down.
Yeah.
Is that you really don't know how you're going to fly on the way down.
A friend of mine said, I finished a song, I knew not to say anything, and he did this. He looked over the edge, and he said, "Oh, that's too bad." But didn't he flap furiously? I think that's an epitaph. I think I'll take it. Start with not didn't he flap? Sorry, that's too bad. Didn't he flap furiously? So
There's something like really strong about music, and I think a lot of times in music, and when I'm working with someone, a melody will come or lyrics will come. This is very common for me.
yes,
And then I tune in to see, is it appropriate that I would sing a song or to do something along these lines? So just because it comes to my mind as a therapist doesn't mean that I use it, but often I will. And I've had fantastic results from it, of a deeper connection, and often it's one of the catalysts that moves therapy forward. And so I really do believe that the art of being a musician, and maybe all of us are musicians, maybe we're musicians that listen, but that if we can enact that, and what I'm really noticing today, Laurence, is that you have this incredibly keen power of observation, and then you articulate it. And when you were at the dentist, and you know, and she said a phrase, and you were busy observing, of being right there and observing, and then it sticks with you with as if you're playing that first chord that is the question.
mm.
And then you explore that in so many different ways within your mind, and then when you put your hands on the strings of the banjo, there's something, this body mind connection that happens that helps to make things make more sense. And this way of creating consciousness, because we're talking about creativity in music, this way of being able to relate to, in the past when you were a pediatrician, of relating with children, you know, as a psychiatrist and whatnot, that that it's on this level that everybody can understand. Everybody can understand a melody, even the simple melody. My dog has fleas, you know? I mean, it doesn't have to be this like profound thing, but people can really relate to it. And I really respect that in you.
Thank you. Well, I should mention on a more mundane level that that was the first public performance of that song. but but um, but I think you're every I think we all start as musical beings. That first cry is just a long vowel, and um, and and if we are really fortunate, it gets nurtured,
Mhm.
that music, but so much it's not. I believe that music is a relatively modern, meaning in the history of the species, evolutionary force for progress. And we can't really resist it much. I really want to hear, because Jan asked questions. I took a step back and said, yeah, actually, I had to struggle to get here, but now creativity makes sense to me. This is how I make sense of things. And then, and feels like a purpose. That's its role now. So I don't know if I answered your questions. That's why I'm saying that.
And I'm just going to say something quickly first.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, about an hour and a half ago, I was asked to play some drums at a ceremony. And so I get to leave in 5 minutes to play
5 minutes.
drums at a ceremony.
Good.
So,
Yes.
so
Point taken.
Jan,
So we have 5 minutes left.
yeah, we do.
Okay, so answering your question about that asks about my questions, to a certain degree, yes, and you definitely opened up a lot more corridors or say lanes that we can follow. Although 5 minutes is not much, but I think that we can maybe we can continue this conversation, one day
You
or
know,
another, and just, go further with it because I think we just started some things. There's plenty of things that we can actually address in terms of creativity, especially that it is actually also in the heart of our say newest conception of how two-level communication and everything works that we did with Dr. Catherine Rossi that we did some things in there. We can also relate that to some things that you said. I'm on creativity for like I think that the last year I'm just reading about creativity and a lot of its forms. Uh, a lot. So when you mentioned that you want to talk about creativity, I go, okay, that's something I think I understand a bit for now. So what what I gonna say is that you answered some of my questions to a degree, but causing a lot more questions to come up. So,
Oh, good.
well,
so
maybe we
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
agree to
I
a
think we
second
can,
time.
yeah, I think there's lots of conceptual ways we can talk about creativity at a future conversation. I'm open to that because, of course, the other bottom line is that until we express it, we don't really know what we're thinking.
right. And
And
also, one more thing that I'm thinking about is since you are working with children a lot, I'm thinking about creativity in a relationship to children and in within this group of people, since
yeah.
children are creative in their own way. And I'm curious about your reflections around that
Oh,
subject
yeah.
and everything else. So there's tons of things I want to ask you. So I would not say that we could do another conversation. I say let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. We not too soon in the future, so we remember and keep this fluid. Yep. Thanks for the
Mhm.
opportunity. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Oh, it was really, really great. And I hope that this stimulates many of our listeners of where was your origin with music and with
Yeah.
creativity.
Yes. Yeah.
And how does that support you in your life?
Right.
Exactly.
Right. A wonderful thing to ask people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much for today's conversation. Thank all of you who are listening to us. And if you've got any questions, don't hesitate. Put it in the comments or write us an email. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Sugarman. Thank you very much, Dr. Rossi. This was another episode of our Experiencing Consciousness podcast. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Jan. You're the best. Be well, be happy, celebrate life.